We had a really great time talking about marketing and how that affects the guest experience with Elizabeth Harlow from Sonesta, the Chief Brand Officer. David, what were some of your favorite talking points from this episode?
Well, first of all, it was her first podcast. She killed it. And
Killed it.
second, it was amazing how she's just always learning through her career. She's made it a point to always be, learning, which was great advice that she gave. And her travel and her experiences that have kind of made her who she is. It was just really fascinating to listen to her talk about that.
Absolutely. And you can tell she is one of those people that's just extremely passionate about not only hospitality, but the people in hospitality. She mentioned to us how she's such a huge advocate for networking and, keeping in touch with people in the industry. And also, huge into supporting women in leadership roles as well. So overall, I thought it was a great episode and I'm excited to release it here.
All right. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to The Modern Hotelier. Both hosts were honored as top 100 influential people in hospitality. We're bringing you interviews with industry experts, thought leaders, and innovators who are shaping the future of hospitality. Whether you're a seasoned hotel professional or just stepping into the industry, our goal is to provide you with insights, knowledge, and trends that will empower you, the modern hotelier.
Are you going to high-tech or commercial strategy conference in Charlotte? Are you looking to create content or amplify your voice while you're there? The Modern Hotelier can help. The Modern Hotelier is the leading source of hospitality industry insights, helping hoteliers navigate today's ever-changing landscape. Our team will be in Charlotte doing live interviews with exhibitors and attendees. We're excited to connect with industry experts and thought leaders of the hospitality space. If you're interested in meeting the Modern Hotelier team, send us a message on LinkedIn or email steve@themodernhotelier.com.
Steve, who do we have on the program today?
Yeah, David, today we have on Elizabeth Harlow. Elizabeth is the Chief Brand Officer for Sonesta International Hotels. With more than 2 decades in brand strategy and marketing, Elizabeth has mastered the perfect combination of brand, service, and luxury while seamlessly driving financial results. She's held the leadership role with some of the world's most iconic hospitality brands, and her approach is laser focused on the brand and customer. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Steve. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're going to go through 3 sections. We're going to ask you some quick lightning round type questions. We've learned about your background, get into your career, and then get into some industry topics. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay. What was your first job?
First job out of college was at the Huntley Lodge in Big Sky, Montana, where I was at the front desk. I wanted to be a ski bum for a little bit. Didn't want to really face reality quite yet, so headed out there.
That's great. What's your favorite city?
It's New York. You can't beat it. Second favorite is Zurich. Close, fast follow.
Okay. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice, it recently came up in a conversation. It was about 15 years ago when I was at W, and my boss had said at the time, the key to success is take care of your people, because people will take care of the guests will take care of the business, and business will take care of itself, which I thought was just a perfect way to bring everything home, for lack of a better term.
That's good advice. If you could trade places with someone for a day, who would you trade places with?
Oh, well, I don't think he'd want to trade places with me per se, but Barry Sternlicht, I think, is the trailblazer in the industry, especially when it comes to brands and the world that I'm in, and have always just had such respect and admiration for him. But I don't think he'd want to be me.
You never know. What is on your bucket list?
It has to be travel, of course, not surprisingly. I have been fortunate enough to have been to Tokyo a handful of times, but I've never had the opportunity to explore beyond Tokyo, and Japan it's calling to me. So hopefully it's next.
Do you have a secret talent that nobody knows you have, or most people don't know you have?
I don't know if people don't know I have it, but I'm the world's best audience. Like, I love someone with a sense of humor. It makes me happy. It's a sign of intelligence. So it's a win-win. Best audience.
So if you had your own late night talk show, who would your first guest be?
Oh, that's a great one. My late night talk show. It would be Hillary Clinton. I mean, just as, a female leader, someone who's blazed a trail again, and just I know that she's polarizing, but I think she's a fascinating person and would love to have her.
Okay, last one of the lightning round. If you had a time machine, which way are you going? Into the future, into the past, and what year are you going to?
Okay, great question. I think I would go into the past, but it's very forward looking. And I'll tell you what I mean by that is it would have to be back to the Roman Empire. And I think that because they were so advanced in their civilization, and I often wonder, had Rome not had it survived in the Roman Empire, where would we be today as a civilization? Because I think that we would probably be years ahead of where we are now. So it's kind of a little bit of both, I would say.
Great answer. Well, that was great. Now we're going to learn a little bit more about your background and what makes you tick. So you grew up in Washington, D.C., is that right?
I did, yes.
Awesome. So how did that shape you into who you are today?
So growing up in DC was wonderful. You know, both of my parents were New Yorkers. They moved there before I was born. And I think a lot of my childhood made me who I am, like most people today. But my parents loved to travel when I was a child. So I was fortunate enough to travel with them. And they really instilled in me the love of travel and how I think it's so necessary for one's personal growth and in terms of understanding and empathy and appreciation of different cultures and people. And so I think by nature of my father's work, that enabled us to travel a lot. And I think it was a real impact on who I am today.
And what part of DC did you grow up in?
All right. So the true Washingtonians will have an issue with this, but I grew up in the suburbs.
In Virginia?
In Maryland, close.
Okay.
The other one, so part of the DMV. But I was born in Washington, D.C., grew up in the suburbs, went to high school in Georgetown, and then went to college. But I haven't lived there most of my adult life, but I loved it. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So you graduated from the American International University in London with a bachelor's of science degree in business and economics with a marketing concentration. What made you? We heard your love of travel, but what made you decide to go abroad for university?
Well, so my father and my mom and my dad at the time, when it was time for me to go to college, were living in Austria, in Vienna. So my father was with the International Atomic Energy Agency. They're the ones who would go in and find those weapons of mass destruction. And I am very close to my parents. And it was an opportunity for me to be close to them, to live in Europe. Because before I graduated from college in London, I was actually in Switzerland for a few years as well. So it was a chance to be close to them. And you know, you look back and you think, what is it? Youth is wasted on the young, right? I was kind of kicking and screaming, going, I don't know, I want to go to school in the States. That's where all my friends are going to be. But then after 4 years, not surprisingly, I didn't want to leave. I was very happy.
That's awesome. And you're quite the skier as well. I know you just mentioned Switzerland. How did you get into skiing, and where's your favorite place that you've skied?
Wow, you guys have done your homework. Yes, I am an avid skier. I did spend a lot of time, as mentioned, in Switzerland, but my husband and his family and we go skiing every year in Austria. And yeah, it's tradition. It's the same hotel. It's the same resort. You see the same people that you've made friends with over the years, kids growing up together. It's multi-generational. It's just, it's beautiful. It's called Zers is where we go in Austria. Mm-hmm.
Well, that was great. Now we're going to go to your career, how you got to where you are today. So you were the marketing manager for leading hotels of the world. Then you went to Starwood as the director of brand management, then came back to leading hotels of the world to be their senior director of brand marketing. What did you learn in those early stages of your career that gave you a good foundation for your current role at Sonesta?
Was fortunate to work for so many great organizations. Leading hotels of the world was just amazing, especially as a young 20-something year old, I should say, coming out of college and my first kind of jobs in the industry. And kind of relating it back to my childhood, traveling with my parents from place to place, I would see this plaque on the side of the hotel saying, a member of the leading hotels of the world. And I'd say, that's where I want to stay. So it was fun to kind of have it come full circle. And I spent a great number of years there. Again, I think learning the hospitality industry from the inside out, the luxury hospitality industry from the inside out, and the independent side of luxury, it's so unique to leading and having these iconic hotels that are just have so much history and heritage to them, being able to have experience with those hotels, to meet the most incredible people. And I always say the best thing about this industry is the people that I've gotten to meet over the years. And I think that in this industry, if you don't have a love of people, then you're in the wrong industry, right? Because you are supposed to be hospitable by nature. So that was terrific. Then I had the opportunity to go to Starwood. And I would say from that perspective, that was the most formative time on my career from a brand perspective. Because I started out working at the W brand, which was, I wouldn't say it's an infancy stage, but maybe in its toddler stage when I was with them, and just really doing things differently from a hospitality brand perspective that was quite out of the norm at the time, and understanding that, again, that true brand management. And I came after Barry Sternlicht had left, but he had shaped the organization to such a degree with such a focus on brands and the critical nature of brand integrity and keeping brands differentiated. So that was very, very formative in my career in terms of what I was able to learn there and the people that I was able to meet.
So you then went to Lowe's to be their senior vice president of brand marketing, then MGM to be the VP of brand strategy, and then VP of brand marketing at Howard Hughes. What are some of the marketing challenges you've faced with large brands, and how did you try to stay ahead of the curve?
So I think, every brand is different. Every brand is different in terms of where they are in their growth trajectory and where they are in their life cycle. So many brands have been around forever and haven't carved out where their niche is. And so when I started at Lowe's and when I started at MGM, I really took the approach of digging into the brand, how they were positioned, who their core customer was, what their brand promise was. And it was interesting to me that a lot of these brands had not kind of done that diligence, for lack of a better term, or at least hadn't done it in a while. And really using that kind of those learnings of the core customer to shape not only your marketing, obviously, but certainly your brand experience, what they're looking for, what those touch points are going to be across the customer journey. So I love that kind of work, and I love digging into the psychology of brands in many ways. So that was a tremendous learning for me. Then going to Bellagio when I started out at MGM, that was next level in terms of what that experience would be. And running a 5-star hotel with 4,000 rooms seemed I had to get my arms around that. So that was an experience. I never thought I never saw myself in Las Vegas, but it was a wonderful, wonderful time. And I learned so much.
That's great. And now for the past 3 years, you've been with Sonesta as their chief brand officer. So tell us more about your role there and your favorite experience so far at Sonesta.
Well, it has been a whirlwind. The company itself has been through so much growth over the past 3 years. It's went from 60 hotels to 260 hotels to now we're at 1,100 hotels. It's been quite incredible. And I joined almost 3 years ago. Later on this month, it'll be 3 years. One of my old bosses from Starwood is the COO, and that's how I came back, and that's how I got reconnected with Sonesta. So similar to what I mentioned before, when I joined, there were 5 brands, but brands in name only. Nobody could tell you, again, promise, core customer, values. So first, we really set about to kind of do that positioning work, which then informed a lot of the brand, but also the marketing side of the business. So it has been nonstop, as you can imagine. I think when in 2020, when a lot of hotels were shrinking or companies were contracting, we were expanding. Our CEO and the company in general, I should say, is extremely entrepreneurial in spirit. We are a private company, so that gives us in many ways more flexibility. Some might think in terms of where we go and what we're doing and how we kind of take our course. So it has been just tremendous. Again, I've learned so much, and I'm tapping into brands and categories of brands that I had not had experience with, primarily in the value space, but They make up a huge part of our portfolio and a critical piece of who we are as an organization. So that's been a tremendous learning curve for me, and trying and digging into that customer and what that customer is looking for and how we can drive their stay and value across the enterprise. So it's been a very, very exciting time, and the past 3 years have flown by just because in terms of the actions and the activity that are surrounding us. So it's been terrific.
What's one of your favorite things that you've done or you've seen at Sonesta over the past 3 years?
Well, I think it's again just having the ability to shape and architect these brands, right? They had again been existence in name only, so having that impact has been great. Also, I think another thing that we're very proud of is we launched our first ever brand awareness campaign. The company had never done that before. So that was quite fulfilling, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And we saw the impact of that as well. So I'm quite pleased and proud of that we were able to do that as an organization and to see the results of our efforts. So it's been rewarding.
That's great. Now we're going to get into the industry thoughts and get your opinion on a few things. So in March, we celebrated Women's History Month for women in the industry. You know, as a leader yourself, C-suite executive, what advice do you have to women in hospitality to help them grow with their career or be successful in the hospitality industry?
I would give this advice to women, yes, maybe secondarily men as well, but it's important to have a point of view. For sure. It's also important to be curious and connected, for lack of a better term. And to have a seat at the table, you do have to come armed. Again, maybe armed is too strong a word, but that sounds a little bit combative. But prepared.
Make sure you're packing if you come to the table.
Yeah. Prepared and not to, if you believe in something, then you should truly believe in it and come prepared to any kind of discussion with a point of view. To have confidence, right? I think that many women sometimes can suffer from imposter syndrome, and that's quite normal regardless of what industry you're in. I think it's becoming less and less normal, and I'm so happy to see that. But then I would also kind of add, as my mother would tell me every day before I go to work, for example, when I would speak to her in the morning, she'd say, "Oh, and Lizzie, work hard." So I think that's always important too, is having this strong work ethic, as simple as it sounds. And it's something that's really kind of guided me. That all being said, now that we're beyond COVID, I think it's important that people take care of themselves. And I think that it's critical for longevity. I think we have to take a step back and make sure that if we're not healthy and of a healthy kind of headspace, then we can't expect the people that we work with to healthy either. So I think it's kind of shifted, I would say, in the past few years coming out of COVID and this realization of self-care.
So last year, Sonesta partnered with Grubhub, which seems like a really smart idea. What's the feedback you've been getting, and how's it been affecting the guest overall experience?
Yeah, we've seen great success from our partnership with Grubhub, especially at our extended stay properties, because that gives them a value that, I guess, removing some friction from some of the extended stay kind of experience. So we've seen great uptake from our guests, especially from the Grubhub side, and they can see the activity of the guests kind of engaging with that brand and utilizing the services. So while we started off with the kind of extended stay brands, we're actually speaking with them to grow the partnership even more. But it just gives a benefit. And again, removing some friction from the guest stay. And it's very well received and appreciated by our extended stay guests, certainly.
That's great. And I was reading an article, and this quote really stuck out to me. And I want to understand a little bit more what you mean by this. You said marketing is part art and part science. So what do you mean by that? And, how can marketers incorporate this into marketing for hotels?
Well, certainly. I strongly believe in that statement. Marketing speaks to the creative nature in someone and to their audiences. So that is kind of how I view the art side of things. But that all said, our technology and the tools that we have on hand allow us to dig in and really understand, well, a creative idea might be wonderful and creative, but if it's actually not moving the needle, then is it all worth it? So I think it's marrying those two sensibilities together, which can produce the most impactful campaigns that are going to drive audience, drive behavior, and drive demand. So that's what I meant by that. Did that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have an instance in your career where the art and science really came together for a marketing campaign or a marketing activity that you've done?
Certainly, I would point to our famous Yet Nameless campaign that we ran last year. And if you're not familiar with it, the whole premise of the campaign was we've been around for 80 years. Sonesta has been around for 80 years, and yet nobody really knew our name, right? Our brand awareness was, well, we'll say it was pretty low. We, working with our partner agency, Row New York, we concepted that idea, and we wanted to work with a Hollywood celebrity whose face you know, but name you might not know. And we found the perfect brand ambassador. And I wish I could show a picture of her and say how many people know her name, but we worked with Judy Greer. And if you don't know who Judy Greer is, you probably don't know her name, but you do know her face. And always plays the sidekick, right? The best friend, the bridesmaid. And we approached her and said, hey, we've got this concept. What do you think? And she said, it's perfect. And it's so me. So we worked with her and developed this campaign. And so that was the art part, right? It was creative. It was authentic, meaning we know where we stand. She knows where she stands in terms of brand recognition. So let's see where this goes. And we launched in January of 2023. And quite immediately, we did see this spike in our awareness, right? And we did, now granted, it had a huge media push behind it, which you need, right? And then, so working with our media agency, trying to find the perfect channels that would really showcase what the creative was, the message was, et cetera. And because of that kind of push and pull, we did see this double-digit increase in our awareness, which then we saw transcend into our website traffic and then moving down the funnel. So that, to me, demonstrated an art and science to a marketing campaign.
Great campaign. I just looked her up. No idea who she was, but now I do. So it's literally the perfect person for that campaign. So
yeah.
That's hilarious. That's really funny.
Yeah.
So one of the things you're passionate about is sustainability. And what are you seeing this year, 2024, kind of trends? And what are some of the low-hanging fruit or layups for hotels to just make an impact with sustainability?
Yeah, it's a very delicate notion, right? And I think that oftentimes we see organizations, enterprises greenwash, right? They say they're sustainable, and yet they're not. If you scratch the surface, it's not entirely representative of their practices. I'll give an example. I was at a hotel recently, not a Sonesta hotel. The hotel will remain nameless, but I thought it was funny that they'd gone through the trouble of putting a tent card in the bathroom saying, we are a green hotel. And yet when I turned my eyes over into the shower, there's these tiny little bottles of shampoo, conditioner. And I said, well, don't even say it then at that point. I mean, it gets back to a lot of hotels kind of positioning, well, if you don't launder your hotels, therefore launder your linens, your towels, et cetera, you're impacting our sustainability efforts. And sure, you are, but it goes beyond that. And I think to answer your question about what the low-hanging fruit is, put in bulk dispensers in the showers and the vanities, et cetera. It makes such, from a cost perspective, you're going to do better. From a waste perspective, from an efficiency. And yet there might be some upfront costs, but those will be over time diminished, and the operating costs will level out and make it all. So to me, that's a very kind of simple step, and something that it's one of the first things I notice when I stay in hotels now. And it's something that seems so simple, but can make a big impact.
Yeah, it's true. I was just in New York, and it was one of the first hotels I've been to in a while, and they did have the single use. And it was like a little cap, and I was trying to open it, and then you're trying to squeeze, and you're like, "That's all that's coming out of this thing." You're like, so anyway, so yeah, it's a
and
very
little bars
good
of soap, and like you scratching at them, taking off the plastic, and you're just, and it's going to be thrown away. So
it's very funny.
That's great. So last question from our end. What advice do you have for younger professionals out there that might be looking to get into marketing in the hospitality industry?
So first of all, the industry, like I said, I think you guys can tell, and I'm passionate about the industry. I think it's one of the best industries out there. It's obviously, I'm biased, but it's afforded me so much in terms of like life skills and experiences and meeting people, as mentioned, from so many different cultures, and just the understanding and the growth that you have emotionally from it. I think in terms of marketing, I was lucky enough to marry two of my passions together. I loved marketing. That's what I studied in college, and I married that up with travel, and here I am now. So if that's of interest to a younger person, I don't think you necessarily have to have a marketing degree to be where I am, to be quite honest. I think it all comes from hard work. It comes from making steps within your career that you're strategic about, right? You know that you're going to take this step because down the road, that's the ultimate goal. And your career might zig and zag a little bit, but as long as you're building that experience and again, networking along the way, I think every job that I've had for, I don't even know how long, it was someone reaching out to me from my network saying, hey, would you be interested in this, that, or the other thing? It wasn't me actively looking. And I think that just shows how valuable networking can be in building those relationships. So that's my advice.
Absolutely. Great advice. Great advice. So we've been asking you questions this whole time. So we're going to turn the tables and we're going to let you ask David and I a question.
Okay. Who's been... So you guys have been doing this now for, I'm going to say a year?
Three? Well,
third season. Sorry, this is our third season.
Okay. Going back. Who's been your best guest?
Best guest. I don't know if I have a favorite guest, but I definitely have favorite moments. I will say that. Probably one of my favorite moments was one of our first episodes, actually. It was with Sarah Dandashy. She started a breakdancing club in college. So naturally, I asked what her favorite song was to breakdance to. And she started singing Kid Rock, Ball with the Ball. Then I joined in, and then we're just singing Kid Rock on the podcast. So I never thought I'd be singing Kid Rock on a podcast because I'm a terrible singer, and who thought Kid Rock would be a topic of conversation. But it just was one of those moments that always sticks out to me and was just hilarious.
I love it. That is a moment. What about you, David?
Yeah, I think, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I've just loved pretty much all of our guests because this is a great kind of gig to have because you learn so much. But probably my favorite moment was our very first episode. I'm good friends with Anthony Melchiori, and we don't give people the questions. We don't tell them what we're going to ask them. And I asked him, could you explain to the audience what is a missile pilot? And he was in the Air Force. He just lost it. He just on there. He had no idea because when he was in college, they would go to bars and tell the girls that they were missile pilots that from the Air Force. And then they would say, what do you mean? And they would say, well, how do you think the missile finds the target? And so it was this whole, it was just a funny moment because he didn't know what was going to happen. And he basically lost it.
I love it.
He literally fell out of his chair.
Yeah, he did.
That moment.
Well played.
Yeah.
Well played. What's one of the most interesting things that you've learned from your guests and your...
Oh my goodness. I think it's the passions for, I'm going to say the passions in general, but how many people want to go to Tokyo and Japan or even
really?
love the culture? You're probably one of the fifth or sixth guests that we've had on that either has said something about Tokyo or the culture or something like that. And it has risen steadily on my bucket list to now it's one of the top destinations that I have to go to in my life.
Ah, interesting.
But that was great. So we've been asking you questions this whole time. You're probably sick of answering questions from us, but our producer, John, has been listening the whole time as well. So we're going to hand it off to him for the final question of the episode.
Yeah, I have been listening the whole time, and it is very clear that you are very passionate about hospitality and travel, and that's super, super cool. You've also had a lot of experience in marketing with, bigger brands and stuff like that. A lot of our audience is independents. And so I'm curious if you just have some quick hitter tips to how does what you've learned working with brands and marketing, how would you say that would apply and help out independents and how they can kind of take their marketing and brand to the next level?
Well, I think even independent hotels, they're their own brand, right? And I think you, as an independent hotel, you have to differentiate how you're defining and crafting the guest experience versus your competitor and being true to that brand. Therefore, the kind of outward communication of that brand is based on that guest experience. And I think that guest experience and brand marketing can't be disconnected. They have to be 100% integrated in order to have credibility and respectability, if you will, within the industry. And so those touch points, those design features, those amenities, whatever it is, have to be intentional and thoughtful and differentiated, whether that's for a group of hotels as a brand or an independent hotel, in order to set yourself apart and to be, again, differentiated in the marketplace.
Well, that does it for another episode of The Modern Hotelier. This is the part where you get to plug away, Elizabeth. Let us know how to how our audience can connect with you or find out more about Sonesta.
You can always connect with me on LinkedIn. It is an incredible network that I tap into regularly. In terms of Sonesta, you can find us at sonesta.com, and we're growing quickly, so keep an eye out.
So that does it for another episode of The Modern Hotelier. So whether you're watching or listening, we appreciate you and hope to be with you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are you going to High Tech or Commercial Strategy Conference in Charlotte? Are you looking to create content or amplify your voice while you're there? The Modern Hotelier can help. The Modern Hotelier is the leading source of hospitality industry insights, helping hoteliers navigate today's ever-changing landscape. Our team will be in Charlotte doing live interviews with exhibitors and attendees. We're excited to connect with industry experts and thought leaders of the hospitality space. If you're interested in meeting the Modern Hotelier team, send us a message on LinkedIn or email steve@themodernhotelier.com.
You made it to the end of The Modern Hotelier. Thanks for listening. The Modern Hotelier is produced by Make More Media. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you know a guest or sponsor that would be a good fit, feel free to email us at hello@themodernhotelier.com. If you'd like to get some Modern Hotelier merch, click the merch button on modernhotelier.com or click the link below. Thanks and have a great day.